the County Pulse Podcast. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the County Pulse. Now let's get this thing started.
We're going to welcome back in, even though we're here, into the game coming up this weekend against IC. It's our first home game. We're not going to be at Hop yet, but our new stadium, but it's still our first home game. I expect a lot of people there. We're going to be playing against an always tough IC Illinois College opponent. And looking back, they had a tough game against Lake Forest, and Lake Forest, as you know, is always tough, right? So they can take it out, and if you're not ready. But we, kind of going through their stuff, and you probably know this. They have some guys, Destin Chance. He had 256 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Had a running back that got 179 yards, right? This was against Milliken. This Brunstein, he had 106 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. And you have some guys on defense that were really pretty good. End up with a couple receptions and some sacks and tackles. So talking about kind of what their stats were coming off of that, because I think you have to, in some sense, remove the Lake Forest game. Because if I'm watching it, I'm not going to see what maybe I could expect, because Lake Forest was pretty dominant in that win. How do you see that kind of playing out? Given, let's say Chance's, this kid named Chance, his pretty dominant performance in the Milliken game. What do we have to do on the defensive lineup to maybe control that? Sounds like another talented quarterback.
Yeah, he's got some ability. That the Bernstein kid, the receiver, is really good. He's probably a top 2 or 3 guy in the league. And the fortunate thing for us on defense is they don't do a ton of stuff. They just try to do it really well, and they go really fast. So it's definitely a game people got to be paying attention to. If you look away too long, you're gonna misplay. But for us, it continues to be about just making sure we get lined up effectively. And again, coming back to, we just got to tackle. I think Coach Hepp's got a good game plan going in. Our guys on defense had a great practice yesterday going against some of that. It's always hard for scout team to simulate some of the things you do, and especially when it comes to tempo. But they got a good plan, and we've got some good ideas on taking them away. And it's just a matter of making sure we read our keys and do what we're supposed to do. I think, Milliken's a CCIW team, which, historically means they're usually probably pretty good. I wasn't real impressed with them on film. I think watching the Lake Forest game is hopefully a little better, a little closer to how it goes this week. But, the challenge for IC is they're always, really athletic. They're not always the most disciplined team that we see on our schedule, but they're always talented, and they can put it together, at any point. They gave us a game last year down there. So fingers crossed the overnight travel slows them down a step.
Yeah, it does. And I talking about, seeing it again, I'm using Milliken. I did look at the results from the Lake Forest game, and obviously Milliken and Lake Forest aren't the two same teams, but they do have, they have a ground game with their running back Lil. You have to figure out, right, how do we shut down that, not just the quarterback, but also the running game, to be able to maybe, if you can shut down the quarterback and maybe Thomas Little's game from IC, I think that can help be the recipe for success.
Yeah, and I think for us, our goal is we got to start fast. We got to get it. We got to get a couple stops and get a couple scores early, and hopefully get them to go away. Just because of, I think, their expectations to come up here and hammer us, and we gotta try to take the air out of their sails real quick.
Yeah, and I think their defense too. We haven't talked much about it, but how are we going to gear up, you think, and really navigate that, against what appeared again? And, it's hard. Is it hard for you? Because it's hard for me to look at the Lake Forest game, which I certainly didn't watch as in depth as you guys do. If I did, I'd probably need a life. Not that it's not fun, but it's not really my job. But how do you do that when you have a game which shows great promise for IC in the first game, and really the other team in the Lake Forest game kind of dominating them. How do you take that from there? And do you look at the opponents that you're facing and say that they're facing and go, well, like you said, we know Milliken, right? Wasn't too impressed. Lake Forest, they're Lake Forest, right? Just like Monmouth, just like Ripon, right? Those guys that are out there, University of Chicago. How do you do that when you're trying to figure out? Do you just focus on the last game, or do you often look at the other game if that one game is way off?
Yeah, so we'll usually watch like the last game for sure. Usually our game from last year, depending on coordinator changes, and for us defensively with IC, they have the same defensive coordinator, so we know we can use that as at least a reference point. They have a new offensive coordinator, so Coach Epp didn't watch a lot of last year's game. With what they did, and the Lake Forest game was closer than it kind of looked. Right, Lake Forest had 2 pick sixes. They had a 4th and 1 quarterback sneak that the quarterback snuck out of that big pile that ends up happening on those sneak plays and end up scoring a touchdown from 20 yards out. And a couple of those things don't happen. I think that's a different ball game. It at least looks a lot closer than it was. Or it looked a lot worse than it was. It was ultimately, I think, a pretty close game. And so for us, it's trying to get our guys to understand, like, hey, regardless of what that result looks like this is still a really good team, and we got to make sure we're on it. We got our A game coming on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think that's the tough thing that I try to put myself in your guys' shoes is you watch last year's game, right? And you kind of look back on that with IC, but then you have to take out that we have, we had 20 some guys who are gone, right? That moved on. And then they probably got new guys that, maybe you haven't seen, or guys that have moved on. So it's always this thing. I think you probably just look at an overall style and what they do, not seeing a lot of changes, and then realize that they may have certain pop out athletes here and there that you need to be aware of. Would that be at least a decent way to think about it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And so it's our first game. I just seen, it's the first game at home. We're going to be Ingalls Field, right? We'll have the tailgate. I did ask parents because I'm trying to get my strength up and my stamina up if they want to play pickleball, but we haven't had any takers. So we're going to play. So if any of you parents are watching this or listening, you bring a pickleball pad. We have some extras just to kind of do before the tailgate, because we were looking around. Just a side note, we were looking around when we were up there, and we were trying to find a pickleball court, and we're looking all over, and we go to a park. That's not it. We kept looking, and long and behold, the tennis courts right behind the parking lot where we tailgate, there's 8 of them, and they're pickleball. And we're like, it's right here. So we have a tailgate. I think it's still going to be there. And we thought maybe we got there early. The good thing about that sport, not as tough as football, but it's a great sport for me to kind of get my balance back, some stamina. Really clear up a lot of cobwebs I have both in my mind and in my body after my transplant to do that. And so we thought, well, let's do that maybe a couple games before that. You can get them done pretty quick, and then go to the tailgate, and then let's go watch a Ripon victory, right?
Yeah, there you go. It's a good plan.
Or we can play afterwards, and I'll say, hey, coach, come get some.
My kid's got a flag football game after on Ingalls, so I'll be there for a while.
There you go. So a couple of fun trivias. We've kind of went over this before, and I told you you're graded on. So right now, you're about 50-50. So let's start studying them. What is, and I'm hoping these are right. I didn't check the sources too good. I try to ask for some things there, but what's the highest number of points scored by the Ripon College football team in a single game, and when did it happen?
I think there's one. I don't think it's 82 from last year. I think there's one 90-point game from 1912 or something. But 82 is probably the most in a normal recent modern football game.
So the answer is the highest number of points scored by Ripon football in a single game was 82, and that was last year. But the most points, the absolute most points scored with the largest victory was 86-0 over St. John's Military in 1960.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. I thought there was one. I thought there was one like way early that was pretty bad, but
And that may be true. I'm just going by whatever's written down here. You'd think I would be able to
yes.
check these, but as I told you, Saturday we had trouble. That was the day we couldn't get connected. Today was my day to have 8 million things going on, and I ran through some stuff, looked at it, and go, I should double check them. I didn't have time. So
I think it's probably right.
This is a subjective question. All right. Who is the most famous football player to come out of Ripon that you can think of?
Ooh.
I mean, besides yourself.
Wow, that's not accurate.
It's a Wisconsin guy, and I'll tell you, he played for the Green Bay Packers.
I can't think of his name.
Jeff.
I'm not gonna come up with it.
What I have here is a guy by the name of Cecil Isabel. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah.
And it says here, he played for the Green Bay Packers, and he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So he was inducted in 1967. That was before you were born, but I was 1 at that time. So whatever that means. We're going way back because you know what? I was looking for questions and I always ask for help on that stuff. And I did that. And the problem was when I did that, it's like, help me find some answers, trivia answers. And I said, what's their football name? Red Hawks. I'm like, okay, how about something else, right? Yeah. And then it asked for like, who's the winningest coach? I'm like, okay, let's get to something that maybe is a little bit more difficult. So I throw these things out there just to have a little fun. And you were good on, I think, both of those. I'm sure not everyone remembers Cecil's name, but it's good to know people come out of school, come out of college, and they play. They can play at different levels. And we had, we've got some guys. I seen an article on one of our guys from last year doing an interview about an NFL prospect kind of interview, and I don't recall the name. I should have that, but I think it's so cool that our guys, I think guys get lost in that Division I, Division II stuff, in particular Division I, the big guys. And we have some good history here at Ripon. And that's the reason why if there's any recruits that ever watch, you should probably come here. I mean, I know Alabama's out there, Clemson, but it's Ripon. And we may talk about you more than what they do at those big schools, right?
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. So how's this week shaping up so far, Coach?
Good. Like I said, we had a good night of defense had a good night of practice last night. Offense was a little bit jumbled, but we're working on some new stuff. So kind of as expected on a Tuesday. Going a little bit late tonight, just a little schedule change. Get under the lights, crank some music, and hopefully have a great one. I know our guys understand the challenge of what's coming this week, and we got a good team coming into town, and we got to make sure we've got everything straightened out. So I expect tonight to be pretty good, and keep chugging forward every day.
Yeah, and so your Friday always kind of is it more of a walkthrough? I mean, you probably lower the intensity a little bit there.
Yeah, so it's
we don't have Thursday yet, but
the term for Friday is generally walkthrough. For us, it's still it's not a total walk, right? We're moving and getting a little bit of a sweat in. There's some physiological benefits to sweating a little bit the day before a game. So, we're moving, running through special teams, and both sides are a little different. Offense, we run through all those situations that we're going to see over the course of a game. Red zone, third down, short yardage, openers, all that stuff. Defense is a little more walk and talk, just making sure they're lined up and they're ready for what's coming. But it's a little bit lighter. We only go about an hour usually. So
have you guys had the opportunity to be on the new turf yet? Has they let anybody on there yet?
I've been on it, but that was just I had to go double check that they didn't have anything wrong. So we should be able to get on it after next week. So the plan right now is it's released to us on Friday. Okay. So next Friday. So
they've kind of announced formally that the first game will be, I don't remember, the 30th. Is that right? 29th?
Yep. 30th. Yep.
And that game is against
Cornell.
Cornell. Okay, well that's good. And then, but there's going to be a big celebration as well. I think official unveiling. The inaugural game's not going to be. It will be on the 30th, but there's a big celebration. I think against Monmouth, right? Where the college.
21st will be Lake Forest.
Oh, Lake Forest. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that'll be a fun day because women's soccer is going to play at 9 before us, and so like it'll be a cool day to get two teams on there and ultimately just celebrate this awesome place that we get to use, and should be a fun day.
Look, we're looking forward to this weekend, Coach. It's going to be an exciting time. Our first game, 2023, against IC. So good luck and get those boys whipped into shape and ready for a win.
Thank you. Yeah, look forward to seeing everybody on Saturday.
Sounds good, Coach. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the County Pulse podcast. Make sure to find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the County Pulse.